We've done a couple of recollection stories on this channel, and I've got another one. When I was a teenager, I would help my father in a shop, doing the sweeping and the lifting and the dog's body stuff, making the coffee, and I quite enjoyed it, to be honest. And in the antique shop in Warwick, which was a very big antique shop, very busy antique shop, there was quite a lot of variety of things coming through. We did everything except valuables. We didn't do valuables like gold, silver jewellery because of the security. In England in those days, you had to have special shop window glass, you had to have special insurance, you had to have special safes. And latterly, you had to have a vestibule. So if you went into one of these jewellery shops, you'd have to go through the outer door, into the vestibule. They would lock the outer door, then open the interior door with the camera. So you didn't have the opportunity to do a smash and grab inside. So we didn't do gold, silver jewellery, we did ordinary stuff, furniture, rugs, pictures, garden statuary, stuff like that. So that's the background. There was a lovely antique shop, my father's shop. I helped him out and we had a great time. So this story today is about two occasions where I nearly killed someone by mistake. So we had a job lot come in of swords, and swords would come in and there would be a box, a tea chest of say 30 or 40 swords. And our job was to get them off the van. And we would have my father had a table in the back of the shop where he would lay a lot out. And because of the tax on margin in England called special scheme, VAT special scheme, the cost of the item had to be allocated to each item. It wasn't standard rated VAT where you had a floating total of the stock value of the whole shop for the taxman. With the VAT special scheme, you had to have value attributed to each item uniquely, rather like a car dealer has or an estate agent. They pay the VAT on the profit. So we had these tables where the lot would be laid out. There would be a invoice and the invoice would be divided. So it was a sort of about dividing the value, the costs. So this went on all the time. There was stuff coming in, small things called small furniture. All the time there was this sort of cost splitting going on in the shop. And as part of the event, if you like, you would inspect the items. So these swords were laid out on this table, and of course I was a teenager and I found it fascinating, and I went up and looked at these swords. And you would draw the scabbard, and quite soon, if you experienced with swords, quite soon after doing that, you learn if you pull a sword on a rotten scabbard, you're going to lose your fingers. So you hold the thick side of the scabbard, and you draw the sword in case the sword slices through the thin side of the sharp side of the sword, because often the scabbards are leather. So they're all little things that you learn about, so you don't hurt yourself. So those are the swords. And the first time I nearly killed someone was in that area where we were looking at the swords. And of course I was rather silly. I picked a sword up and started to do this to see how it felt, swinging the sword around. And the gentleman next to me was Ian, who was working for my father. He was doing the same, doing the proper job. I was playing around really. Unfortunately, what happened was I sort of did that at him from a distance, like yeah. And unfortunately, the sword blade came out of the handle, so I was left standing with a handle, which is a hand grip, a hilt, and a pommel, and out flew this blade at him. Luckily, he dipped to do something, and it went past him, across his shoulders, and it didn't stick in the wall, but it hit the wall and fell to the floor. So I was quite relieved on that occasion, and I was very fortunate that I hadn't hurt him very badly. So that's swords. Now the second person I nearly killed was myself, because on another occasion we would have powder flasks. There was a very large trade in powder flasks in England, and you will have seen the horn powder flasks, you will have seen the pressed brass powder flasks with a little tap to regulate how much black powder, gunpowder, goes into the pan under a flintlock, for example, or down the muzzle of an older rifle or gun, or cannon. So my father would buy these powder flasks, and in the 80s, 70s, these powder flasks would often be full of gunpowder. And gunpowder is made of three things: saltpeter, sulphur and charcoal from memory, all ground up, and it's a black, dusty, quite granular material. It's the sort of consistency of brown sugar for a basic one. So we would get in the shop powder flasks, and of course I was like a moth to a lamp. I was over on these things, looking at the powder flasks. Some of the powder flasks were shot flasks, and they had lead balls and tiny lead balls, but most of them were powder flasks. And my father would sell them on. The Dutch would buy the brass ones, for example. The Americans like the horn ones. And so on. So there were these on this table where things were examined when they came in. There were these powder flasks. So I decided it would be a good idea to try and light the gunpowder. So I just quietly snuck away in the lunch hour into the back of the shop. There was a garden, and I put some gunpowder on a concrete stone, and I made a little pile of gunpowder, and it was the size of a grape, and I lit it with a piece of cardboard from a distance, and it went, and I thought, it made a lot of smoke, it made a lot of sound, and it sort of burnt quite slowly. It made quite a lot of light, and it made quite a lot of heat, but it was unimpressive, and I was so I did it again with a slightly larger amount, 2 grapes in a heap, and it was the same. It went, and a bloody great white cloud blew away. So I thought, well, I want to see something more interesting. So I made a big pile, and I put about half a mug full of gunpowder on this concrete slab in a pyramid, just poured it out. I was a bit more careful this time, and I got a bit of cardboard, I lit it, and I lit this thing. And this time the effect was different. It exploded, and I found myself inside this red hot white cloud of smoke, and there was a crack. It went sort of like that, and I couldn't see anything. It was just smoke everywhere. I wasn't singed, but it was more light noise and this white smoke, as I say. And this cloud was absolutely huge, and people started to look out the windows. I noticed, and over the garden wall. So that was stupid, of course, but that's the other thing I did. So if you put teenagers with guns and gunpowder and blades, you're going to have problems. So I was very lucky that time, and that taught me a lesson. Okay, so thanks for having a listen. Hopefully it's been interesting. Okay.